there's obviously lots of different types of property that investors out there can get into. What do we think are going to be the key types of property areas to invest this year? What stands out to you?
The key types of property, I think, are ones that may be offered dual usage or dual opportunities. So putting it back to yourself, Mike, STL, short-term let. Why have you gone down that route where I've gone down an AST, a short-hold tenancy route? What's the benefit of short-term let?
Yeah, it's a good question, and as you say, I just completed on one last week, a short-term let property. I mean, for me, what drew me into it, years ago, was obviously the higher returns. Typically on a good short-term let property, you should double that of what you'd get.
So you can double the income, you can double the revenue.
Yeah, certainly. One of my properties, it's a one-bed apartment in Chester. Typically that would fetch around £750 a month, whereas when I run it as a short-term let, you normally get the £1,400, £1,500 a month on it.
So substantial increase then.
Yeah, certainly ticks those boxes of it. And I know we're going to do a piece on short-term let properties in itself and how popular they are, but I think you're right, and as I say, practice what you preach. So that's the reason I've chosen that. I think it'll be a big model this year of it. It gives you that dual use because you can switch it back to an AST properties, which I know you focus on yourself. Your property's an AST one.
It's AST, and it's purely that because the lease doesn't permit short-term lets.
Yeah.
Had it permitted it, it's something I would most definitely have looked at. I mean, the rent is good. It's £1,200 a month for a 1.5 bed apartment. The half bedroom is an internal bedroom with no external window. We bought it initially for my daughter to go to Manchester Uni, and just rolled it on from there. So I think that's maybe where a lot of sort of first-time investors come in. They buy a property for a specific use. We'll talk about it at a later stage, maybe furnished holiday. So they buy it for personal use as a lifestyle, but at the same time they need it to make a revenue and income to offset the running costs. And that's what we did. But it's AST purely because the lease doesn't permit short-term lets.
Yeah, such an important thing on it as well, and it's something that we press when we bring on new developments is make
Very
sure
much so.
it's in that lease, because a lot of old leases don't allow it. And when we, so we say, that's the sort of model short-term lets. We know that's going to be popular again this year on it. In terms of the areas then of purchasing property, I think a lot of people out there maybe get drawn into the big cities, your Manchester, Liverpools, and don't get me wrong, there'll still be some good opportunities there. We focus on in the last couple of years, and it's not going to change this year, of those kind of feeder cities, feeder towns, maybe the ones that people go, I haven't really thought of a Doncaster, Halifax,
Hull,
yeah. But actually, the rents that they achieve, the nightly rates that they achieve, are so strong. Preston's a good example. We manage properties in Preston and Manchester. The nightly rates aren't too dissimilar, but yet you're going to pay double the price if you buy an apartment in Manchester as opposed to one in Preston.
I think that's a key point there, Mike, that the regional cities or even the secondary cities, and I don't want to decry any of the cities, but likes of, it's not a city, but Doncaster, Hull, Preston, on the periphery of major conurbations, likes of Preston feeding off Manchester maybe, Hull feeding off Leeds possibly. It makes a big impact. You're not paying city centre prices, but you're getting the same return. Sorry, not the same return. You're getting the same rent, which increases the return ultimately.
And I think it's worth sometimes just look into regeneration of areas. There's so much stuff out there on the internet that you can find. There was one that came out yesterday about Doncaster Airport and how that's been reopened, and which was music to our ears. Obviously, we have the development that we launched earlier this year in Doncaster. That brings with it revenue, because when works are going on, you've got workers that need accommodation, temporary accommodation. When it's built and ready, you've then got people, pilots, people visiting that'll use it. So, and that is across so many different places, regeneration. That's why we are always looking out for that.
And you're right, it's looking for a driver. Many years ago, we used to talk about what's going to drive the value, what's going to drive the rents, and you would look for a town, a city that would have that regeneration, and genuine regeneration, where the money is going to go in, and that would drive that side of it. And Warrington is an example. Many years ago with the Gemini Retail Park, it was meant to be the biggest IT park in Europe, and that did drive the rents. Didn't happen. It's now all warehousing. You've got Amazon, you've got Greggs, Hermes, but it still maintained the value of those properties and the rental side of that property. And it's important, I think, to look for those drivers, and Doncaster being a good one. The airport opening, the marina being developed, and the marine's just next door to it. When you stand on the sort of area that it's going to be on and look down the river, you can see the vision that the people of Doncaster have.
And they'll be the locations that we look to choose this year. And the reason being is obviously we want to look to not only sell property, but crucially manage property for investors. And I think that forces us to choose the right locations, because yes, we're going to make more money if we're getting higher rates and stuff like that, but crucially so are you as the investor.
I think that's a nice point there, Mike. The fact that residential estates want to manage the developments they sell.
Yeah.
And why would we look to sell something that we can't then manage?
Yeah.
And it's important that we offer that holistic service from sourcing, selling, the after sales that Danielle gives, and then the management side that Steve and Natalie offer on the short term let, or the AST side of it.
Yeah.